have jammed open a loophole and they're operating miles outside the intent of both federal and state law. This from a person who is state sanctioned to sell federally illegal marijuana.
So Texas Monthly just put out an article, Cynthia, pretty rough on THCA within Texas.
I think you called it a hit piece.
It does feel like a hit piece, especially when you involve the Texas Original sort of piece and sort of their component within this. It does feel like a hit piece. It does. And so what were your thoughts on this?
My first takeaway was that it was not well researched. My second takeaway was probably Texas Original paid for this article or something, or was the impetus, asked for this article or something, because it's just not balanced at all.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So, it starts off with somebody from Texas Original saying that Texas has become the biggest unregulated drug market in the country.
But marijuana's illegal and hemp is legal.
What? Yeah. The thing is that the author of this article, it doesn't appear that they did a lot of research. They went into some hemp stores and spoke to employees, but not really to anybody who really knows what's going on. And so that could be by...
Or has been involved in it legislatively or legally.
Yeah. So that could be by design or because they just are not well informed. Don't know. I don't like to ascribe motivation to people without knowing what it is. And so he just talks about how he goes into these hemp stores and he buys flower. And that the THCA flower marijuana thing is I don't know if it's, okay, let me ask you this. Do you think the THCA thing is nuanced or it's black and white?
It's highly contentious right now. Everybody's arguing about it. Even government agencies are arguing about it. There has been little to no enforcement on it because I don't think anybody has figured out how to do any enforcement on it. It's an interesting one. In my eyes, THC is sort of a niche within hemp that sort of, you've got people that are, even within hemp, you've got people that are pro-THCA and against THCA, even within the hemp industry. Mm-hmm. And for a variety of reasons. So it's a really interesting sort of component of the hemp industry. And it is the newest part of the hemp industry as well. So THCA has been out for, maybe a couple years now, really a year kind of big, in a big way, especially in Texas. But there's also a chance it could go away. There's a high likelihood that at any moment THCA could go away and the rest of the hemp industry would still be fine.
So one of these sentences here is the hemp industry argues that according to the letter of the law, THC levels don't matter. What hemp industry did he talk to? This author, who was the hemp industry that he talked to, right? Because we're kind of leaders in the industry and didn't talk to us. So regardless of whether or not...
Well, the next sentence is wrong. Any plant with less than 0.3% THC is hemp. It's Delta 9.
It's Delta 9. So it's a little bit sloppy.
Very vague.
Yes. So, okay. And then they sent out these samples to a lab. And the director of quality assurance for the lab said, this is not a regular cannabis flower. Can you talk to me about what a regular cannabis flower is?
So if you go buy marijuana in Colorado, right? I have one of the containers sitting on my desk, and we'll pop a picture of it. But in Colorado, they specifically test for THCA versus Delta 9. So in most states, they're lumping in the THCA with the Delta 9. So if you go to Oklahoma, for example, you're going to see a THC level, all the flowers, it'll say, something between 15 and 32%. And that is, realistically, that is mostly probably THCA.
So Colorado is testing for THCA because that's what's in their law?
I'm assuming that is the regulatory component of Colorado. I need to look into that and confirm. But in Colorado, when you buy a cannabis product, at least the last time I was there, it has THCA distinguishable from everything else. And the THCA number is the number that's the highest number on that product because it's cannabis, right? Cannabis. So THCA is the precursor. When THCA essentially is heated or decarboxylated, it's going to turn into Delta 9. And so,
And decarboxylation happens over time and heat. So, which is interesting because the same director of quality assurance said there's no way that a plant tested at legal THC levels in a manufacturing facility would test higher weeks later. That's called decarboxylation.
it literally happens. So from the point where a plant is tested in the initial grow period, pre-harvest, from when it's tested to post-harvest, from then if it's tested again later, as you test throughout the plant's life cycle, the THCA will slowly convert into delta-9. It will stay mostly THCA, but it will convert into delta-9.
Yeah. So there will be, the number will move.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Okay, here's my theory about this article, because it starts off with Texas Original complaining about how this is, not to their liking or whatever. So I imagine that the reporter was given some direction when they purchased their samples. I imagine that they were given some direction about what they should ask to test for. That's what I think.
So THCA is already regulated per the Farm Bill. Mm-hmm. Can you explain how? And the reason I'm asking is there's a lot of people that say THCA has no regulations and it's the Wild West, and we go down this whole rabbit hole. But you know that THCA is regulated. How do you know this?
When a federal agency puts out rule, or there's a law passed, and then they have like comment periods, and people have to submit their comments so that they can make the rules that will support that law. Okay, so the same thing happened with the Farm Bill. And they put out the Farm Bill, and then they accepted a bunch of comments. And then after they accepted those comments, they made some modifications based on comments that they had received and that kind of thing. And in that process, in that back and forth, they included THCA as part of the definition of delta-9 that needs to be tested for in the field. So the USDA has a definition of total THC that equals delta-9 plus THCA, and the calculation is whatever delta-9 is times 0.877% THCA. And it has to be under the legal limit. So that's how they do it.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I actually got into a back and forth with some guy on LinkedIn one day and he started trolling me because I said he was wrong about the THCA thing. And he was like, no, you're not. And he sent me a screenshot before the final rules were issued, when that wasn't there. So I sent him the link to the actual final rules and the actual language that includes the THCA and the delta-9. And surprise, he stopped trolling me. I never heard from him again. No. What?
Yeah, I can't. Wow.
Wait. So they talk about how this one particular hemp store said they're disappointed because they have to rely on the provider's paperwork to show that it's legal. And that is a thing. Right? You have to trust your vendors. And every time we talk I talk to one of our stores, I'm always like, listen, if you don't get a COA with the product that you're ordering, you should do random checks once in a while to cover yourself. But the people receiving the product are relying on the information they're being given from their vendors. What else are they going to do?
I'm also kind of curious what Texas Originals and the other two, so there's 3 Texas medical marijuana companies that are registered and active. I'm curious to see a COA for the flower they're growing. I've never seen one. I've never heard of it. And my understanding is they're responsible for testing their own flower?
Yeah, I think it's vertically integrated, so they test their own.
So there's no outside lab involved. There's no state involvement. They literally test their own flower. And my understanding is if something comes hot, they're the ones that they report to.
Yeah.
How does that work?
They have to, if I remember correctly, they have to report to the state that something tested hot and how they remediated it.
That's interesting. So they are literally responsible for testing their own product, testing their own flower.
Yes.
And if something happens, they report that issue to themselves.
And then they report to the state that they reported it to themselves and they fixed it.
Interesting.
Which is interesting that you say that, because further down in the article, they talk about DSHS, the Texas Department of State Health Services, how they only have 4 inspectors to manage 7,000 licensed hemp stores. First of all, they're not licensed hemp stores. They use the word dispensary here, but they're not dispensaries, so that's another misnomer. But a lot of those are how many HEBs are in Texas?
Hundreds.
Yeah. So take all those out because HEB only sells CBD, but they had to register. Take out all the CVS's, take out the Walgreens, take out all those other stores. And it's more like 3,500 stores. So what's interesting is that he's highlighting here, the author is highlighting that how the Texas Department of State Health Services doesn't have enough inspectors. But you just brought up that on the medical marijuana side,
There's no
inspecting.
None.
They're doing their own inspecting.
Correct.
So which is worse?
I mean, one inspector or two inspectors or four inspectors is better than no inspectors. So my understanding is on the medical side, there are literally no inspectors. There's none.
This is why
There's no outside testing. It's all self-reported. So how does that work?
Lucas, were you a good boy today?
I mean,
Of course I was. Like, hello. Yeah. Okay. So then we start talking about how these things are testing hot. Lucas, do you want to talk to me about all the weed, the marijuana, the illegal marijuana coming in from like New Mexico and Oklahoma and Colorado, California?
yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious at this point, Oklahoma, California, Colorado, like if you buy marijuana off the street anywhere, odds are they're telling you it came from one of those three places. It's
If you buy
highly
it off
likely.
the street. If you're a retailer and they're like, no, this is hemp flower, here's this great price, people are probably going to say, cool. Because I do believe that hemp retailers, for the most part, are being told that they're buying one thing and they're really getting something else. And also, we just had this whole conversation about decarboxylation that somebody who's the quality director for a lab doesn't even know or understand is a thing that happens. So we're expecting a retailer to know that that's the thing that happens.
Yeah.
It's not cool.
Yeah, THCA is going to be highly contentious this legislative session in Texas. It's going to be a
Yes.
very interesting
It's
conversation
already been
topic.
brought to our attention.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so here's a line. The DEA in the 80s found that the Delta-9 THC levels were around 3%. Can you talk to me about what levels marijuana is at now?
So if you go, so they're talking specifically Delta-9.
Yes.
Now, so if you, Lewis will pop this up. So if you look at this, we're looking at a flower container with a lab test on it. It's got 33% THCA, less than 1%, 0.91% THC, which is Delta-9 on this case. So you've got a massive amount of THCA and a very small amount of Delta-9. It's not considered hemp, but it's not far off. And that is 33% THCA.
Yes. And why is that?
Because the THCA has not converted into Delta-9 yet.
Which will happen because of decarboxylation.
Correct.
Yeah. So,
By the way, in a lot of lab tests, which one of the reasons I was asking for the COAs from this lab, in a lot of lab tests, the way that they test will convert the THCA into Delta-9.
yes, if they use the wrong kind of test,
Correct.
it will
So
make
that's what I was saying.
it'll make it hot.
It's very confusing that they didn't show the COAs on this because I think it would be very clear if they did that you could tell that they either used the wrong test to purposefully, by the way, if they're running a lab, they know this is a thing. You can test THCA flower the wrong way and make it convert into Delta-9 through the testing process, and through the testing process, you actually make it an illegal product. Yeah. And my guess is, it sounds like from this lab, they actually played that game.
It's possible.
Because I don't see COAs and I don't see proof that they didn't.
Yeah. So this article, okay, so then we get a line here.
By the way, just to be clear, this is marijuana. This is full bore Colorado marijuana, 30% total THC, right? Now, there's some equations and things that change to get that total THC number, but this is a 33% THC and a 0.91% Delta-9. And they're saying in here that this flower is 150 times, 140 times what the legal limit is. I will bet money that they used the wrong test on purpose to get a high level of D9.
Or it is marijuana and the hemp retailers don't know it.
Well, I think some of it is definitely marijuana that's being sold, right? But that being said, if you use the wrong test, you can drastically change the results.
Agreed.
And you can make it look way worse than what it is. But
So
if it's over 0.3, it's marijuana regardless.
he quotes Nico Richardson from Texas Original. He said, let's be honest and call it what it is. Most of the hemp, he says, dispensaries out there, because he's a marijuana guy and he doesn't know they're just stores, knowingly or unknowingly are selling illegal federal marijuana, which is what he's selling because he's got a little state...
Sanctioned monopoly.
That's it. And then there's a thing here, it says, and this is the author now, not the Texas Original guy. And they can do it because these stores operate at the crossroads of poorly written laws, wily chemists brewing up.
That wily chemist thing reminds me. So I heard that multiple times in the hearing. That was the narrative that they wanted to throw out. These
wily chemists.
What did they call them? Cute chemists.
Cute.
The cute chemists.
Some cute chemists
that figured out how to do this. It's flour. There's nothing cute about it.
What I wanted to finish saying here is that this says wily chemists brewing up potent new strains and an understaffed, underfinanced, and handcuffed state regulatory body. Wow. Underfinanced?
We've done the math. They get almost $2 million a year.
Handcuffed? What's handcuffing them?
Nothing.
Okay.
I mean, they're actually doing inspections where on the medical side, there are no inspectors. My understanding is there's nobody inspecting.
Super interesting, and this is the problem with the media, and I did get into an argument with a reporter at Politico about this. They can say things, and then they don't have to back it up, but it's out there in print, and everybody takes it as fact or truth or whatever, and they don't have to,
Well, everybody assumes that they did their research and they know what they're talking about, which in a lot of cases, not really the case.
So let's see here. And then he talks about marijuana legal states. Colorado and Washington approve recreational use. And then there's Alaska and Oregon. 24 states have joined the green wave. They have implemented testing regimes to ferret out the sort of contaminants that may be going undetected in strains of hemp sold in Texas. Do you want to take that?
Yeah, we test for more pesticides. We test for more harmful constituents than anybody in the country. The hemp industry has been very good about this. You can see our COAs on our products. You can see our COAs on our website. We don't hide them. And a lot of the marijuana industry right now is a complete shit show because they are being called out, specifically in California, for having illegal Chinese pesticides, stuff that will kill you. There's stuff in the flower that's being used that is highly, highly toxic in the marijuana industry, and this has not been a problem in the hemp industry.
And yet somehow, these states are being held up as paragons of good behavior versus what's happening in Texas.
No, the marijuana industry is a disaster in all of those states.
Yeah, okay. So then we're almost done with this article, thank goodness. Let's see. So Texas Original became one of the largest medical dispensaries. I think they have like 70% of the market, right?
Yes.
Okay.
70 to 80% is what I was told.
So Texas Original grew along...
For the medical marijuana market within Texas.
The medical marijuana monopoly.
Correct.
Okay. So Texas Original grew alongside the medical marijuana monopoly program, adding customers and increasing revenue until about 2023. He blames the proliferation of hemp fake dispensaries, they're retailers, for this setback. Did hemp acreage not go down in Texas in 2023?
It did.
Yeah. So, let's see. Could it just be that people like having other options besides the medical marijuana monopoly?
True. I'd also be curious so Texas Originals, the laws in Texas currently limit them to 1%. 1% Delta 9 THC on a dry weight basis.
Does it include THCa?
I don't know, does it?
I don't know. I'm not in the medical marijuana monopoly, so I don't have to know.
So one interesting thing is for them to basically do what they're doing, for them to hit less than 1%, I mean, they're essentially having to grow hemp, right?
Yes.
Are they growing hemp or are they growing marijuana?
I don't know. Why don't we ask the lab?
So that's another thing. So they show their flower here. I don't see a COA for did their flower get tested? Oh, they test all their own stuff. They don't have labs test their stuff. Oh, well, that's an obvious issue.
So here, now we're making, this reporter's making assumptions. So Chemists and botanists in the hemp industry soon discovered they could extract psychoactive compounds from hemp, such as THCs, thus skirting federal and state laws focused on Delta-9. There is so much insinuation here, and like, you don't know any of this shit. You can beep that out. Like, what the... First of all, let's just take it from the top. Delta-8 was discovered in the 1940s.
Correct.
As were other cannabinoids during this time. So it's not that Texas legalized or the Farm Bill happened in 2018, Texas legalized in 2019, and then all of a sudden these chemists and botanists got to work so they could figure this stuff out. No, we already knew about some of these compounds. That's number one. Wait. And then, no, you're fine. Then, thus skirting state and federal laws. So he's ascribing motivation to an industry he clearly hasn't had any conversation with, and saying that we figured out, because this industry is so organized that we all got together and had a conversation about how to skirt state and federal laws. So nobody's skirting federal laws because marijuana is federally illegal. DEA, come and get them.
Yeah.
Right. It's already, so nobody's skirting anything here. This is total BS. Okay. Totally unknowledgeable about
that's why I
the
said it
industry.
was a hit piece.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I hate saying when you're right, but this one time, I'm going to say you were right. He doesn't, he says, not addressed. Basically, he doesn't talk about existing regulations. So he makes it seem like there are no regulations and there's no way to fix any of this and whatever. So there's that. So then he says, with products that looked, smelled, and acted like marijuana, hemp dispensary sales increased. Still, the industry feared the state would soon enact new regulations. Nobody was even selling. And so he talks about the 2021 bill that didn't pass. Nobody was selling THCa flower in 2021.
Well, and then shortly after this in 2021 is when they put the note on the DSHS website, and we had to subsequently file a lawsuit, and that's the lawsuit we're in.
Correct. But he's saying that somehow, like this guy, his time, like he needs
Oh, here we go. He references our case.
Does he?
Later that year, a new state health department rule that would have prohibited such hemp-derived cannabinoid strains was successfully challenged in court. Yeah, because it was made up and put on their website. It wasn't a law. That case is pending before the Texas Supreme Court. By the way, he references our court case, doesn't say who we are, and never reached out to us.
I don't need to be part of a shitty article, so I'm okay with that.
Fair enough.
Let's see here. So, totally out of touch. This whole article supports the narrative that benefits Texas Original. I just want to say.
That's why I said it's a hit piece.
Let's see here. There was...
And he doesn't call out any obvious issues that they have on that side. So he quotes somebody from one of the stores saying, after doing our due diligence, we do feel comfortable and confident that THCa is legal in Texas, and THCa is the same thing as marijuana in Colorado. So that's not fully understood. So marijuana everywhere contains THCa. Hemp contains THCa. The levels and how it was grown and sort of regulatorily where it fits is what determines whether or not it's hemp or marijuana. And so, in the Delta-9 on a dry weight basis, right? So look, this guy's quoting people that may not fully understand what's going on, and I feel like that alone is disingenuous. That he didn't reach out to somebody. I mean, there are hundreds of people that are very knowledgeable, whether it's lawyers, whether it's legislative people. There are hundreds of people that he could have approached to have some kind of valid discussion
balance in this article?
An educated discussion around what is going on here, but he chose to go after the small store owners.
Yes.
So that to me, it does show that I believe this was a hit piece, and it makes sense when you read it.
I would like to suggest to anyone in Texas who thinks that they're legally selling marijuana to engage a good lawyer.
Yeah, and there's also lab tests that you can get done where they'll test for THC and Delta-9 separately. You don't have to use this garbage lab test that they're using that's going to basically lump everything into Delta-9 and make it all look illegal. That's not beneficial to anybody. And I'm assuming that's what they did on the test where they tested the flower here They just sent it into a lab and had it tested in a way that's going to convert all the THC into Delta-9. And yes, it makes it look horrible, but you can't make a product illegal that was legal before the test. The testing literally heats it up, decarboxylates it, turns it into an illegal product, and then be like, oh, look, it's illegal.
So he quotes a legislator here who says that the hemp industry has been bastardized as we were fearful it could be. So I don't know, if you were concerned about something being bastardized, wouldn't you just be proactive about it and put in regulations to make sure it didn't get bastardized?
Well, that's the problem with a lot of these arguments that I'm hearing now, too, with the hemp industry is we knew this could potentially happen, or we knew this was going to happen.
It was foretold this could happen.
If you knew it was going to happen, why didn't you write a better bill in the beginning?
So then he quotes somebody from Texas Original that they, whoever the they is, have jammed open a loophole and they're operating miles outside the intent of both federal and state law. This from a person who is state sanctioned to sell federally illegal marijuana is going to lecture other people about what they're doing or not doing. I mean, how do you spell hypocrite? So then the Texas Original guy says, it is not an economic program for operators. That sentence doesn't even make any sense. If it said it's not an economically viable program for operators, that would make more sense. But, I mean, it only works if you have a monopoly. It's the only way that business idea works, is if you have a monopoly.
And that's what it is.
Yeah. So opponents of legislation argue that what they call intoxicating hemp is dangerous and out of control. What about intoxicating marijuana that this same guy seems to be supporting? It's never been called intoxicating marijuana there.
Oh, I love this. We can't continue to put business interests over the lives of our youth and community, said Nicole Holt, CEO of Texans for Safe and Drug-Free Youth. We want to ban all cannabis and cannabis-derived products.
Wouldn't that include the medical marijuana monopoly?
You'd think so.
I mean, the word all is small, but it's pretty encompassing. So, okay. Then, here we're wrapping it up. The flourishing hemp industry is preparing to fight in the courts and the legislature to keep its smoke-blowing golden goose happy and healthy. Wow.
Yeah, this is a total hit piece.
They must be besties. I don't know. Yeah. That's the wrap up there.
Real objective reporting.
Super. Thank you. That's the word that was escaping me. Super objective reporting. Not really. Yes.
Yeah, and I'm willing to bet there's not going to be a follow-up article or anything else.
Straightening things out, setting the record straight?
No.
And that's not even an op-ed. That's an article.
That's an article.
It's in Politics and Policy. So this article is obviously, a pretty straight hit piece on the hemp industry in Texas. Not surprised. When I tell everybody we're at war every day, this is the type of stuff that we're dealing with. It's obvious hit pieces. It's stuff that is very anti-hemp and supporting state monopolies.
Yes.
Around marijuana, whether it's Texas or other states. We see this in a lot of states where you've got these marijuana companies sort of playing these games and using these words to try and make the hemp industry look bad, when a lot of times they're doing way worse than what they're accusing the hemp industry of doing. So this is one of those ones where, make sure that any of this stuff you read, if you see it, call it out. We're telling everybody in the industry, call it out. Cynthia and I are on LinkedIn every day stirring it up, pissing people off left and right. I've been blocked numerous times because people don't like what I have to say. But we speak the truth and we tell people this is what you're being told and it's wrong. And not everybody likes that. Not everybody, is fond of being told that what they believe is not factually based or not based in reality. So it is what it is. Love you guys as always. Thank you for joining us and talking about this crazy article. Happy hunting and see you guys soon. Maybe do better next time?